had scandalous freedom about it. He really did. And it was because he cared about the right things for the right reasons. And I feel like I have to throw that in because that makes it practical to all of us. Like, do we want that freedom? We're called to imitate Christ in all of this. From the playfulness to this, like this is humanity fully alive. We talked about Jesus being human. And people go, I kind of think maybe he was cheating a little bit. Jesus was Adam and Eve were not God, right? But man in that perfect state with that holy heart that was not compromised, that's the kind of humanity that Adam and Eve had. And that's what humanity was intended to be. If your iPod is broken, you don't consider that to really be a complete iPod. And somebody hands you a working iPod, you're not going to sit there and turn down the working iPod and go, no, that's not a real iPod. That's not really it. No, this is more of a real iPod than the other one is because the other one isn't doing what the iPod was supposed to do. Jesus was more human than I think we ever will be here. It's incredible. And he did things for the right reasons, with the right perspective, and that allowed him to have that freedom. And he stayed true to that. You know, we see this in the world so often. Like, you see these politicians who, say, oh, I'm squeaky clean, da-da-da-da-da, and then a few years later, something comes out, and your friends, like, oh, yeah, they're totally chill, they're good with God, and then they come out, a few years later, man, I've been addicted to porn the whole time. And you thought that these people were perfect and without blemish, and then they come out, and all of a sudden, that's compromised to you. And you go, man, when is the other shoe going to fall? You guys know that expression? Like, when is the truth going to come out? And the truth isn't nearly as good as what I think it is. How many people stay true to what they want to be, to what they should be?
Not many.
And Jesus stayed true. And it's incredible. That trueness manifested itself in so many ways. And one of them was that freedom. And you guys are going to see that in your life. If you start living for God, it's going to rock the boat. We were talking a lot last night about stuff that God has taught us, that including this kind of message. If I get up in front of an awful lot of churches, I don't know what the figure would be, but it'd be an awful lot, probably the majority of churches, and I start giving these talks that I've given, I'm not going to be looked at very fondly at all. I'm telling the water to wine story and telling you how much wine he made and it was the best wine and it was the end of the party. People are going to go, oh, you're just saying that Jesus was encouraging people to get smashed. Immediately they're going to jump to it. And right there, just boom, no, you're done, dismissed. Do I want to be dismissed when there's so much more to say that could get them closer to God and I want that? Of course I don't. But I know what God has taught me, and I'm not ashamed of that. And I know that God wants them to hear that. And as God has molded my heart, I start to have that freedom. That will come out in your guys' lives. Big time. And that's in every aspect of your life. From and admitting that. It's huge when you experience that scandalous freedom that comes about because you do the right things for the right reasons. And we see that in Jesus. And again, he wasn't cheating at all of this. He was fully human. And so we can do this. And God calls us to do this. And again, in the next few months, we are going to dig into this more. We really are. Like, I don't want to sit there and just kind of, say this is going to be it, and we're not going to dive into it anymore. But our point for the weekend is that we're looking at how the scriptures portray Jesus' character and personality. And so again, the practical is to dig into these and go, hey, where do we see that freedom coming out? And that has to replace our previous view of God. Because again, I think creating God in our own image, like so often we either see God as timid as we are at sharing the gospel, for example, or we see God as, you don't understand. You don't understand peer pressure. You don't understand this. Well, he does. And he still had that freedom. That's huge. And that's why we're going through these stories and we're looking at how the Bible shows Jesus' personality and character, so that we can see what he was like and we can experience him and get to know him and get to love him for what he was like. Because it's hard to be close to that God when you don't think that he can relate to you, when you don't think that he can love you, when you can't fall in love with someone whose personality you don't know. You can't. And that's why we're doing this, and we're digging into all these stories. That's the practical, is just uncovering all of that. And the hyper-practical is how it's going to start applying to your guys' lives. And I don't think you have to think too hard to think of how that freedom would come out in your life. If you did the right things for the right reasons, it'd be incredible. It'd change the way you talk to other people about Jesus. Like, we're held captive by people's opinions. We think that if they think we're gay, we're totally gay. We think that if they just think that we're weird, that in some way we think we're weird. We don't like being, set aside or anything like that. But God wants to heal even that. Not to the point where, who cares what you guys do? Like, that's not what I'm saying. Jesus didn't dismiss things like that. If he dismissed it, it was for the right reasons. It was for reasons that he was still whole. He was still able to have that confidence, right? And so this is huge. And we see Jesus with that freedom. And I don't know, I never grasped that until recently. And so that's what I wanted to hit for this morning. Anybody have any questions?